Hey, what's up? It's Ryan. Real quick before we get into this session of THC podcast, I wanted to tell you about the 10-day hustle. Get an advantage over your competition. Make more money in just 10 days, and it's 100% free. My gift to you. Shoot over to 10dayhustle.com or text the word hustle to 44222 and sign up now before we take it down. Again, that's 10dayhustle.com or text the word hustle to 44222. Let's hustle, baby. What's up, closers? Welcome to the Hardcore Closer Podcast. I am the host, Ryan Steuben, founder of HardcoreCloser.com. And listen, this podcast is all about helping you close more deals. And listen, if you're selling cars, homes, financial services, consulting, whatever it is that you're out there helping enrich the marketplace and the economy at the same time, this podcast is dedicated to helping you, right? Helping you generate better leads, helping you increase your closing ratios, and showing you how to charge premium prices for what you sell. That way you can get paid what you're worth, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, welcome to episode number 27. If you haven't listened to the previous 26, you should. They're all good. Trust me. We would delete it if it wasn't good. You would never know about it. This would be episode 26 because we would have deleted one. But instead we have 27. But look, I'm glad you're here. If it's your first time, be sure to check out the previous episodes. Like I said, but listen, do me a favor. If you've listened to this more than once, even if it's your first time, leave me a review on iTunes. Listen, the thing with iTunes is if you leave me a 5-star review on there, it's going to show me to more people. It's going to help me move up the rank. It's like SEO is for Google. There's this whole ranking system for iTunes. The only way that I'm going to be able to reach my goal of getting in front of 300 million salespeople worldwide is if we get in front of as many people as possible on every outlet, which includes iTunes. So I need you to go over there, give me a 5-star review. If you've been listening to the show for a while and you haven't given me a review, it's not cool, man. I need your help, man. I put this show together every single week. That way you have a resource to listen to in the sales community. I just ask you to take a couple seconds and leave me a review. Could you find it in your heart to give me some stars, please? But listen, right here, we got Trevor Mellon. Well, thank you, Robert. Fucking finally. Thank you. We have somebody with a normal name, Trevor Mellon over here. Trevor, thank you for having a fucking normal name on iTunes finally. But it said solid podcast, 5 stars. He said every show has great content. No rainbows and butterflies, BS. It's the best sales and motivational podcast yet. I appreciate that, Trevor Mellon. And what I really appreciate is that this was also July 15th, so it's a little closer to what we got right now, and that you're using a real name. You know, that's something we struggle with here on the show. All right, so back into the content. Listen, this is what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to stall BS, like how to shut down BS stall tactics and overcome objections like a closer. Now, listen, objections are actually buying signs, right? Because unless a client tells you no, right? Unless the client's like, get away from me and blows a rape whistle, right? And straight up tells you no, like your job is to still keep pressing forward and keep making sure that you can surpass the doubts in the mind. As a matter of fact, let me give you guys a little insider information here. Americans especially, we hate telling people no, especially those of us in the South. We hate saying no. So we'll say anything but no. And when you get rid of all the anything excuses, we'll say yes oftentimes. It's something that takes a little bit of finesse and balls to be able to pull off. But it's true if you'll just continue asking. So what I'm going to teach you in today's show is how to shut down those BS stall tactics up front, and so that you can overcome the objections. Because listen, objections are buying signs, but you've got to be able to push through them. Most of the time somebody will say, well, I'm not ready to push forward. And a person will say, the salesperson will say, well, that's okay, man. Well, let me know when you're ready. Right? When really they were ready to move forward right then and there. They just didn't have the information that readied them to move forward. So, and listen, let's just get right into it. The first thing you got to do is it all starts with your presentation. Like your presentation, the experience of how you carry yourself. You pitch people, the more you'll find the same common objections. And so here's what I recommend doing. This is like one of the greatest sales exercises of all times. And this is some 1%er shit, right? Like a lot of people know that they should do this. Very few people have done it. I've actually mentioned this on several shows throughout this podcast. But what you need to do is you need to make a list of the top objections that you get from customers. And within those top objections, you need to write responses to each one of them. And the ones that you continually get over and over and over again, you need to work into your presentation. So that way, when you're talking to people, you think about it, the slicer and dicer, what was the thing? The slap chop, right? They show you up front. They're handling objections, right? When people get on the phone, they're not like, hey, does the slap chop, does it dice fries? Does it dice green beans? Can it turn my Garnier potatoes into, I don't know what the fuck, I'm not into cooking, right? And so people always make my food ever since I was a little kid, right? Like I'm just not a cook. And it's not my strong point. But so with the slap chop, what they did in their presentation, they handle all those objections up front, right? It slices, it dices, it even cuts, homemade fries, turn it sideways, flip it upside down. It even makes a pie, right? They got this whole fucking thing they put together. And what they've done is in their presentation, they're handling all those objections. They know that people usually say, well, does it make fries? People usually say, well, can you bake a pie with it? And so they're showing you up front so that when they get on the phone with you, when you respond to that advertisement, when you respond to that sales pitch, those objections are already gone and you can't use them. So you're getting people more committed. Because here's the thing about objections and stall tactics. They're not doing it because they don't want the product. They're doing it because they're scared and they've made a bunch of bad decisions before. Because humans, for the most part, we're all fucking idiots. And we're all just hairless monkeys roaming this planet trying to act like we got our shit together better than the giraffes. But we're just one step ahead of everybody. The only reason that there's so many of us is because nothing's our natural form predator, right? And so that being said, we get scared. We make a bunch of stupid ass decisions and we get scared to make another decision. And then oftentimes we've made so many stupid ass decisions that when the right decision shows up, we get scared to do it. So we give objections. And it's your job as a good salesman to overcome those objections so that you can help them get back on the good decision wagon, right? It's like your civic duty, motherfuckers. All right. Back to this, right? But when you work those presentations if you work those objections into your presentation, right, it helps push them to where they need to go. Because nobody listening to this, you better not, damn it. Nobody listening to this should be selling something that doesn't help solve a problem, right? It doesn't help the marketplace. Hopefully nobody listening to this is like a thief or somebody that's doing some terrible stuff, right? That's not what we're doing this for. We're teaching you how to solve a problem in the marketplace. So if your prospect has a problem and you can solve that problem, it's kind of an asshole thing not to solve that problem for them. So what you've got to do is you've got to start overcoming those objections through your presentation. The second thing that you can do to help get through BS stall tactics and objections is set the expectations up front, right? Like set the expectations up front. One of the biggest things that happens in the sales world that loses sales is miscommunication. And by miscommunication, I mean more like missed communication, as in, you can't find your salesperson. You're trying to buy something. You're trying to give them money. You just have a few questions for them and they go blank on you. I'll give you an example. Right now, we're trying to rent some space for our Break Free Academy program. If you'd like to know what Break Free Academy is, you can go over to Break Free Academy digital or breakfreeacademy.com. Sorry, I gave the wrong URL there. Breakfreeacademy.com. There's a little video and some stuff a little bit about it. And you can head over there. And we do these live events called Break Free Academy. And we've been throwing them at my house and we throw them at hotels and all this other stuff. And we're trying to get away from the hotel scene. So we're going up to the City Club where we're going to throw the recent one, which is in the 69th floor of the tallest building in downtown Dallas, where I live if this is your first time. And so, the reason why we went to the City Club is because the hotel salespeople, as soon as we started asking them questions, they weren't even objections. But as soon as we started asking them questions, they just go dark on us. Here we are trying to spend $15,000, $20,000 per venue, and this happened at the Texas Star, which is the new Dallas Cowboys facility that they built in Frisco, Texas. This happened with the Marriott in Plano. Like, people just went dark on us. It happened with the Hilton in Frisco. Like, the salesperson went dark as soon as we started asking questions, not even giving objections. They just went dark on us, and that's that missed communication. They get scared. They're non-confrontational, and a lot of salespeople that are listening to this are in that same position. You think the salesperson thought we were blowing them off, and we were trying to buy that. We weren't even giving objections. We were asking questions so that we can make sure we're making the right decision, and then they just disappeared. And I know they don't have that many people. It's not like they're just that busy. It's just they have terrible follow-up, and they get scared for the miscommunication. What I recommend as a salesperson is to set the expectations up front. That way, if stuff does go sideways, if things don't go accordingly, you're able to, after you close the sale, if things don't go accordingly, then what happens is you get to say, hey, you know what? This is what we expected anyway, right? You set the worst case scenario. What I've always done my entire career is sold worst case scenario. Well, here's what could happen. You could completely lose all your money. You think about how the financial markets work. They're like, hey, this portfolio's performed 10% year over year, but you could lose your whole entire life savings if you put it all in here. Right? Like, they have to give you the upside and the downside, the realistic side and the downside. And so that's what I do in sales as well. It's like, hey, you know what? You could drive off the lot and you could get this truck for $200 or $300 less. But well, guess what happens, sir? When you leave the lot and you go drive around town trying to find out which lot's going to give you another $200 or $300 off the price of the truck, then you've spent 2 or 3 days, and I don't know how much money you make or how much your hourly pay is or any of that stuff, but you've spent 2 or 3 days trying to do stuff that you've wasted your time and everything else on, and then all over $200, $300, which ultimately, if you roll it into a 60-month car note, it's going to be like $10, maybe even $5 a month. Who cares? Right? Like, you don't sweat the small stuff, sir. But that's the worst case that could happen. Best case happens, I'm telling you, this is the best price I can give you. It could be the best price in town. Meanwhile, you drive off, you never even have to change the oil in this bad boy because it runs so good. Right? Like, but I try to address that. You know, when people talk to me, they say, well, what kind of guarantee do you have in your tribe? I say there is no guarantee. If you don't do the work, you could just be potentially throwing this money to hang out with me or maybe not even talk with me at all. But if you'll do the work, the upside is unlimited. But worst case scenarios, you forget, you don't plug in, you don't do this, that, and the other. All I'm asking is if that happens, don't blame it on me. I've always set those bad expectations, and then I've set the real expectations and then way over delivered on the back end. That's the way I've done everything. So you can do that as well. And if you'll tell people the real, like the struggle, right? If you'll tell people the objections that, like if you'll handle the objections of the presentation, but if you'll tell people like the worst case scenario, that's the word I was looking for there. If you'll tell people the worst case scenario and you'll set that expectation with them, chances are if they're shopping around, everybody else set all this like happy rainbow unicorn exuberant expectation with everybody else, right? And then you come over here and you're real and you're selling it on the real side and you're enthusiastic about it and you're telling them that, you know, all these other people aren't being real with you. They're going to get that feeling like, oh, this comes from experience. This guy's saying these things. It comes from experience. I'll give you another example. I'm hiring landscape dudes, and I have a pool in my backyard. And over the pool, there's like 5 or 6 trees. They're like these yopon trees, and they've been cutting them into like a dome, right? It's fancy like French poodle bullshit looking trees, right? So anyway, I want them to grow out, right? I'm trying to give them the bush look. And so we're having people come over and talk about trimming them and stuff like that. The first 2 people come over, look at them. Everything's all hunky-dory. They never get back to us. Finally, the third guy comes over here. And the first 2 guys were like, yeah, sure, we can absolutely trim them. They never get back to us. We don't know what's going on. The third guy comes over and he goes, man, I don't know how we're going to trim these trees because we're going to have to rent scaffolding or something like that and stick it in your pool because those trees are taller than any ladder that we have, but we can't lean a ladder up against them and run a gas thing. So I don't know how the hell they're going to be trimmed because they're over the pool here. And I said, well, that's why the other 2 guys didn't get back to us, right? They sold us on best case scenario, then realized what happened when they got back to wherever they went to go put their estimate together. And you're exactly right. And then guess what? The third guy got my business and he said, I don't think we need to trim them. I think they look awesome the way they are. Let's just clean them up and do this. And anyway, he got my business, right? Because he set the expectation with me. Number 3, one of the biggest things that you get in our business is the price stall, right? And they say, well, man, you know, that costs a lot or it's expensive. And we're kind of programmed to be that way, right? Like, you know, that's when people go to the mortgage bank and they say, hey, what's your lowest rate? That's what their dad taught them, whose grandpa taught them. It's like the age-old thing that they've been taught to ask, right? But that doesn't mean that they necessarily want the lowest rate. They're just inquisitive about it. When people are like giving you a hard time about price stalls and everything, what it is they're basically saying like, hey, you can't blame them for asking for more. It's like, can we get it cheaper? And if you're a weak-ass salesperson, you'll go back and give it cheaper to them and they win. But if you stand your ground, like we call it holding gross in the car business, right? But if you'll stand your ground and hold gross, then oftentimes they don't know what the real price is anyway, nor do they give a shit. That's just something that they were taught to say. So, you know, oftentimes it like, hey, if you think you got a weak salesperson, it doesn't hurt to keep asking them. I know somebody who got in a situation where the customer kept demanding shit from them. Like, you know how it is. Like you do one favor for the customer, then they ask you for another one, then they ask you for another one, then you look back 3 months later and you're like, fuck, dude, I've done like 100 favors. This is like the most needy customer on the planet. It's because you never set the expectation for them. And it's the same way when you're going through the price stall, right? If they keep asking for it and you keep giving it to them, they're going to continue to ask for it. They'd be a fool not to. Instead, hold your ground, turn around and say, hey, listen, I know it's expensive, but here's the deal. We're the best in the business. I'll give you an example. Right now, my Break Free Academy costs $2,000. Well, $1,997, the Break Free Academy digital version. And the other day, a lady hits me up from April, and was the last time that we communicated, but I got mad follow-up skills. So she hits me back up the other day and says, hey, I'm ready to move forward with the 997 program. I said, well, it was 997 in April. Right now it's 1997. So it's actually $1,000 more in August than it was in April because we've added a lot to it. We've enhanced it. We turned it into this, that, and the other. And she says, anyway, I can get it for $997. And I replied to her, I said, I'd love to give it to you for $997, but here's the thing. We've already had over 200 people pay $19.97 that took action on it immediately. So it'd be kind of unfair to reward you for not taking action. So I'm going to have to charge you full price. But here's the thing. We've added a lot to it. It's an awesome program. We've added t-shirts to it. We've added a recording of the live event. It's over 140 videos. It had been $9.97 since it was 8 videos. So it was time for a price increase. And now we have tech support and everything else. So it's a much better program for $19.97 than it ever was at $9.97 anyway. And she said, okay, cool, and bought immediately. But had I been a weak-ass salesperson, I would have been like, yeah, I just need to sell. $9.97 is fine. First of all, what's that say about my ethics if I just drop my fucking price 50%? Right? What's that say about me as a person? Like, people would love to be telling behind my back if I did shit like that. Like, Ryan acts one way, but for sure behind the scenes, he'll drop his pants and give you a deal of a lifetime if you just hit him up. I'm not that guy. You know why? Because I don't want to be that guy. Because I don't like people ask me for discounts, so I don't ask people for discounts. Every time I got the homeboy hookup, every time in my life, it's been something fucked up go wrong with it. I'll give you a prime example. The other day, I got lots of stories about my life lately. The other day, we have an air conditioning go out here at the house. And so air conditioning goes out. Friend from Facebook says, hey, man, we'll fix your air conditioner. I give you the hookup. You can do my buddy Michael Onk, man, great company, Fish and Heating and Air, like awesome company, right? What they do is he says, hey, man, we give you the hookup, like under the radar shit, about $3,000. But if you want to do it proper with permits and everything else, it's going to cost about $6,000, right? And I said, man, well, let's, even though it's $3,000 different, I want to do it proper with permits and everything else, man, because I don't want the homeboy hookup. I don't want a discount from your company. I just want things to be done on the up and up and everything done properly. Well, so they come over with the inspector, and he comes over and realizes that it was an old unit they replaced, and this house is a little bit older, so things are a little bit different now than they were back then. But the inspector realized that one thing was left unsealed, and now it's Texas, probably 130 degrees in the attic, so it's a rough job, right? And he says, hey, man, I'll have to give you a red tag for this because if you'd have turned your heating unit on, the gas would have leaked, and if you'd have lit a cigarette or something like that, man, you'd have blown the roof off your house. Now, think about this. Like, imagine if I would have got the homeboy hookup, that inspector would have never been there. I would have never known that. I'd have been out back trying to burn one, and I'd have been blown through the goddamn roof, maybe hurt the neighbors. Now, it's the air conditioner, just people, they just, shit happens. They made a mistake. That's nothing bad on them. They came out here and took care of it and fixed it. This is why we went through the proper channels. But what if we hadn't gone through the proper channels? Imagine that, man. So here's the thing. People oftentimes, they ask for the hookup, but they don't expect it. That's what I'm getting at with all this, is they say they want the hookup, but they don't expect it. You just have to have a little bit of balls and set the expectations, right? And oftentimes people would rather pay full price and get treated like they're supposed to be, instead of getting the homeboy hookup and then just getting treated to the wayside. So remember that. All right, so let's recap real quick. Some ways to shut down. It starts with your presentation, right? Like, it's how you carry yourself, but more importantly, the experience that you give them. And number 2 is address and have solved their objections up front. Think of the slap chop, man. They tell you it slices, it dices, creates julienne fries, right? They teach whatever the fuck those are, right? But it teaches you right there. It's handling objections. So think, when you're giving your pitch, your presentation, are you a slap chop, right? I mean, that was one of the most profitable, that and the OxyClean. The OxyFresh or whatever it was, OxyClean, they're like, hey, it gets grape stains out, it gets cum stains out, it even gets period stains out, right? It's like they just show you all that stuff, so you don't have to ask those questions. You're like, I know that this shit washes boogers off. I'm positive of it. I know if I get drunk and spill red wine on my white blouse, OxyClean's going to clean that shit. Look, he just did it in a little bucket. Imagine with my Whirlpool washer, how clean it's going to be. So something to think about when it comes to addressing your objections up front, right? The most common objections you get down on a piece of paper or in Evernote or something like that, and then write rebuttals to them so that you know what objections to address in your presentation. And then stand your ground on price. If you tell somebody the price is something, always over-deliver the service and over-deliver the product. But, man, stand still on price, because oftentimes they're just asking because that's what they know to do. It's that simple. They've been told all their life, well, ask them, can you go lower? And sometimes it works out. But that doesn't mean you have to. Don't be a weak-ass salesman and fold to them. All right, last thing. Join the 10-day hustle. Text the word hustle to 44222. Let me coach you virtually for 10 days. I'm going to make you some money. Just give me 10 days in your life. Let me tell you what to do for 10 days through the 10-day hustle, and I'm going to make you some money. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go to 10dayhustle.com, and don't forget to leave me a review on iTunes. And then lastly, connect with me on all the social media channels. Go to clixo.com, CLYXO.com/closer. On the Hardcore Closer blog right now. Share this, man. Share it. Put it on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever the hell you have an outlet to share that. That's it for me this week. Let's go make some sales, y'all.